Welcome to the Art of Conscious Living. I am very happy to have back as a returning guest, Billy Sunday Mars. He wrote the book Fit for Love, and today we're going to be discussing possibly about his new book and so much more. Thank you, Billy. How are you? It's great to see you again.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. It's wonderful to see you too.
So what have you been doing since I've last seen you in the way of your work, and how's it been evolving?
Writing, and more writing. I've had the wonderful opportunity to talk with people about what they really wanted to learn about themselves and take what I've been looking at and bring it to a place where it's more simple for them to understand how they can go from what I refer to as the information age into the transformation age, to actually make it applicable and accessible in their lives, bringing heaven down to earth, as Rumi says.
Beautiful. And what have you been seeing that people have been wanting and asking? Give us a little, you can't give it all away, the whole book, but give us some little tidbits and taste of it.
Well, I can break it down to three basic points, three basic understandings. The first thing is people feel disconnected within themselves. When women come to classes, or even men come to classes, they feel there's a disconnect between their head and their hips. And that's a lot of the work that I do, especially with helping people with intimacy. It's a separation of self with and within self. And that is the first difficulty that people face. So taking them through a process of learning how to get from their head back into their hips is a very important process of awareness for them, because they say, oh my goodness, I didn't know that I was so much in my thought that I wasn't experiencing my body or aware of how my body was functioning.
And I think if anybody would know about that, you particularly would know about that, because I have a little secret about you, and the secret is about to be released here. You were a dancer, and an incredible exotic dancer. Where did you start in that? Where were you first working? Was it Chippendales?
I was originally a teacher of Chippendales and other exotic dances. At first I was teaching the guys, and then the guys said, hey, can you teach my girlfriend that? And it turns out their girlfriends worked in some of the other clubs. So I began working with both the men and the women, and comically they said, well, why don't you do this yourself? And I was more into the jazz and fluid dance styles, and I didn't know how I would be able to transition that. So I said, okay, I'll give this a try. But what I really want to do is find out more so why the people are going to the clubs. What's the draw? So I became what I refer to, and my friends called, a lover undercover.
And what did you see? What the reason why they were coming to the clubs?
Thanks for asking. Instead of doing table dances, I did table talks. I went and I asked them, especially the women, what they were looking for, because they were either married or getting married, or sometimes obviously single, going to the clubs to watch the people perform. And the same with the guys. You know, I would ask the guys why they were watching the women. But most often the women were saying, we're not getting the intimacy, we're not getting the attention, the guy won't listen. Typically, and this is what us guys have to watch, we let ourselves go. I mean, both people in a relationship tend at times to let themselves go. But what they really want to do is learn to become what they want to attract, even within their relationship. It has to be a constant courtship. It can't just be, well, I have the person now, it's done. It has to be something where you're not just for the sake of attracting the other person, but for yourself, because what you're doing is staying healthy. Typically what it means is if you're losing your attractiveness, it means you're losing your health more so than anything. And that's what leads me to the second part of it. We have the self with self that's a difficulty, and within the self to be connected from your head into your hips and be what I call going from your subconscious into your sexual energy, or from your subliminal, which is your underlying thoughts, which control 95% of what we do. And so we bring that into our sexual energy, our libidinal energy, which is kind of like the motor for our lives. It gives us the energy to do the things we want to do. And I call it the coal that becomes the diamond because of our consciousness by making that happen. And what does that consciousness come from? And that's part two. That's self with source. Our source energy. We can refer to it as God, the higher power, and it'll come in a lot of different ways. But mostly, it's common sense. How does life work? How do we work? When we understand how things work, we have effortless power instead of powerless effort.
Well, I imagine there's an issue, particularly with women, it would be a trust issue, where a lot of women, as I'm listening to you speak about the dynamics of from the mind to bring it down to the hips.
Yes, yes.
Women they're very, very different than men.
Yeah.
Women need to disconnect from the mind, they need to connect to their heart,
Right.
and they need to allow themselves to melt down from their sacred spot,
Right.
from their sexual energy. So the sexual energy rises, but all that's tied into or woven into this trust. What a boyfriend did, perhaps, their first love that they had when they were first starting to have sex in teenage years. And then maybe the husband, their ex-husband, their ex-boyfriends, their past experiences is going to be dictating what they're bringing to the bed now. So how would you address that, about this trust issue of women, and what do you think of the solution could be of that?
You've wonderfully segued into part 3. We have self with self, self with source, and now the twos, self with source and self with source of two people that are going together as they're growing together, coming together. And that takes the awareness, especially of the man, to understand that women hold trauma in their hips. Women, it's known that the sacred spot is where, what we refer to as the G-spot area, is where women hold a lot of pain. And a lot of trauma is held in their hips, not only from sometimes maybe even beyond a boyfriend or a husband. Maybe they have been, there's been a situation where they've been violently interacted with, sometimes a rape. And on another side, there's the understanding that neglect is also extremely detrimental to women. So with that, the man, his opportunity is to pay attention to those signs and be aware, because he needs to do two things. He needs to be able to relax her in order for anything to work intimately, and he needs to be able to arouse her. To relax her, she has to trust not only that he's there for her highest good, but also that he actually has taken the time to understand her and learn what to do for her intimately.
Would you elaborate on, when you say neglect, what do you mean by neglect? Is that a foreplay or more connection? I would imagine it's a combination of all of that.
Exactly.
More foreplay, more connection, deeper, more profound connection, instead of racing towards the end result, which is the big bang of the ejaculation or the orgasm. Actually, what are they doing? They're there for a communion of sacredness and a way of connecting from spirit to spirit. And there's a whole ceremony that goes with that.
Can we get playful for a moment here?
Yes.
I think this is a good opportunity for especially women to be able to express it to their boyfriends or husbands, because this is one of the things I work with, helping women explain or talk to their husbands without the man getting upset or making him feel like he's not capable. Women, I say to men most of the time, do you grill? And the guy will go, yeah. And I'll
do
go,
you what?
Grill?
Grill.
Yeah, like out in the backyard barbecue.
Okay.
And I'll say, don't you have to wait for the coals to heat up first before you try to cook? Yes. So then the men go, yeah. And I'll say to the woman, explain it that way. Say, just like when you want to cook something, you have to wait for the oven to heat up. And the woman has to allow herself to receive first, because here's a wonderful thing. There's a wonderful hormone called oxytocin that she has to allow to be released into her system to get rid of the cortisol from the stresses of the day. If there's stress from cortisol, if there's her amygdala firing, which is the fight or flight center in the back of her brain, if that's firing, she can't climax. And so no matter what he does, it's kind of like a sentry standing there going, nope, nothing's going to happen until this issue is resolved. So a woman has to realize that foreplay begins long before the bedroom. It takes washing the dishes for her, drawing the bath for her, allowing her to feel, and then she feels nourished. She feels like he cares because he's taking the time to notice things that she needs other than sex itself. and then to go into a massage. And that's another wonderful thing, because non-sexual touch also releases oxytocin. She needs that hormone to be able to allow herself to get into the space where she can receive, where she can surrender. And this is one of the important things for men to realize. And for her herself, because she has to, and I say this, learn to love herself first. It's chivalry in any sense. If she can learn to receive first, to allow herself to be prepared first to receive, then the man can give. And it's important for a woman to learn that it is important for her to not feel guilt, to not feel shame, to not feel, oh, this is taking too long. Men run marathons. We're in an area where everybody's running the decathlons and triathlons and Ironman competitions. You mean to tell me that they can't last longer than 5 minutes if they can run a race for hours and swim and run and ride bikes for all that time? And they can learn computer games, and they can learn how to take a car apart, and they can learn all these things. They can't take the time to understand their girlfriend or wife. Doesn't that seem strange to you?
Absolutely. So it's all about really enjoying yourself and then enjoying your partner, your beloved, and then bringing a celebration to that.
Yes, yes.
And in that celebration, there is an incredible union.
Yes.
I think the greater percentage of the people are really, they have the goal in mind, and the goal in mind is to have that ejaculation. So they're losing the whole, the whole experience.
It's even worse than that. Worse than that.
Yes, how is it worse?
Science has proven on the other side of it that if men, I mean, aside from what Tantra teaches, which is obviously and what Tantra is teaching is to take their time to allow the woman to get into a better space, the eye gazing, the sitting in yabyum, that allows, those are wonderful ways to release oxytocin for the woman.
And for those who don't know yabyum position, that would be
when the woman sits across the man's lap, and sometimes they sit cross-legged, but she sits facing him, and
they gaze at one another.
And they gaze into each other's eyes, and she breathes out and he breathes in her air, and vice versa. He breathes out and she breathes in his air, and they're circulating the wonderful microcosmic orbit, and the energies flowing between them, and that allows them to connect more deeply. That creates the trust. And that allows the man to learn to work with his energy to not be so aggressive. And what I was saying a moment ago, which is very important, is when people allow themselves to spend more time before they actually, the man ejaculates on one end, or before the woman has her orgasm, they release more of the DHEA, which is a chemical hormone that allows them to, ready, repair their muscular structure, their metabolism, their bones. It allows them to release HGH, which also does the same thing, the human growth hormone. It allows them to build up the energy, which allows them to release neurochemicals. For the woman, it's oxytocin and serotonin. And comically, and this is what whenever I explain this to people, they go, really? When intimacy works right, it's the woman that goes to sleep. The man actually has more energy because he's released dopamine and testosterone into his system. He doesn't fall asleep. If they do it backwards, which is what happens when a man ejaculates right away, he falls asleep, and that basically means he's robbed himself of energy. He's lost energy, he's lost power. But if he does it the right way, then she gets to be in her yin, which is basically her parasympathetic, nervous understanding of herself. She's relaxed and she falls asleep. She goes off into this wonderful, wonderful place where oxytocin and serotonin are flowing through her system, and she's in this beautiful place, and he's released her from herself. He's released her from the tensions of the day. He's released her from the tensions of life. And that's one of the things that's really important for a woman. And when a man sees this, there's an energy that's released that not only allows the universe to, comically, I love this part, I love explaining this part, we enter the world through a woman, as men, from our source. We go back through a woman to our source during intimacy. We connect, and when we're there and spending the time and really nurturing and being with the woman and present to her, we then draw the universe's blessings. We then draw the greatness that the universe has to offer back through into this world. This is why if we're there for a short time, it's kind of like, it's like taking, if you got to spend time with one of the great mystics, or you got to spend time with one of the great people and going, hi, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Sorry, gotta go. Imagine
have no time for the enlightenment.
Have no time for the enlightenment. Or if they said, you know, you're taking what you want from this opportunity and you're leaving right away. It's like getting to the gate of the palace and leaving before you go in.
Well said. Beautiful. I'd like to speak about the male orgasm and the non-ejaculation and the orgasm without ejaculation.
Right.
And how that is comparable to a woman's orgasm.
Okay.
A woman can have a multiple orgasm, and she can ride the waves of bliss, and her orgasm could be multi-faceted, and so, I mean, it could light up a city if they could tap into that incredible energy.
Literally. It can.
But let's talk about from a male point of view, and then you're the perfect person to speak to about this. What is that experience about for you of having don't have an ejaculation and having an orgasm? And you've had both. You've experienced where you've had the ejaculation, but you've also now experienced it in the Tantra way of having the no ejaculation and this incredible release of this energy. Would you please share with our male brothers out there who would very much like to know about this?
This is what I mean. When we're looking at this, both for men and women, we have the multiple, the blend, the expand, and the extend. And for that can be done for a woman. Now, why this is so important for a woman to allow her guy to get to this place is to make him better as a man. Why? It'll strengthen him. If he can learn to take this process and be with the process, and instead of ejaculating right away, not only does he have more time to please her, which will make her happier, and men who have more sex live longer. Why? They're working with that energy. Women who want more sex live longer. So if the man knows what he's doing with himself and improving himself, both people live longer and live better. If he can take the energy of that orgasm, the non-ejaculative orgasm, because once he does, he's losing arginine.
Yes.
He's losing testosterone. He's losing these things, and that's basically this nitric oxide, which is created from arginine. He's losing that, and now it's like deflating his balloon. It's like taking the battery pack out of a robot. That's it. It's over. Whereas on the other side, if he can take that and build up, each time he's able to have his orgasm come up into his body and breathe it up into his body through the microcosmic orbit and breathe it back up and in, using the muscles, the PC muscles in the pelvic floor, learning to work with because the prostate of the male, if he keeps that from expulsing, then he can send the energy back up, because that holds 30% of the seminal fluid. And although men do need a release to get the prostate to function, we do know that is something that even tantric men have to realize, that if they don't occasionally do that, it holds 30% of the prostatic fluid, which is fructose.
Right.
But it does no good for them if they don't wait, and they have to wait. They have to learn to take the energy, allow the DHEA to be released into their system, to allow the HGH to be released into their system, to allow the testosterone to build up. In fact, sex itself is not the end.
To cultivate the energy.
It's the means, yeah. What I would say to is they have an unripe orgasm.
Yes.
Both men and women are constantly having these unripe orgasms, so there's no sweetness to it.
Yes. Billy, what final thoughts would you like to share? Because I know on May 1st, coming up next weekend, actually, here in San Francisco at the New Living Expo, you're going to be doing a talk there. So we invite the public to come out and hear your talk about more information and everything else that you can share and elaborate on. But what final thought would you have right now that you'd like to share with people that would be very important to you?
We are not experiencing near what we are capable of experiencing as human beings in our lives, because we're disconnected within ourselves. we have to learn to cultivate our sexual energy and guide it. I call it disciplining our desires. I call it refining our rage energies. We want that passion, we want that energy, and just direct it consciously. Everybody has this opportunity. Everything that happens from our libidinal energy is our life force. We need to learn to cultivate that. It'll keep us alive longer. It'll help us to live better lives. It'll help us to regenerate. And here's another thing that's very important. We can end the violence on our planet from the problem of neglecting this energy, which, like an animal, because it is our animal energy, if we don't feed it and guide it and train it properly, it becomes violent. It can be made to love, it can be made to serve, it can be made to do wonderful things. So we have to learn that we have an opportunity to live incredible lives, experiencing incredible things, rather than being in medicinal and material compensation and consolation, seeking things outside of ourselves, by learning how we function and how each other functions. And by doing that, we'll breed compassion, as they say, self-reflection does, to understand that we're all looking to experience life and our source on earth, not being theoretical about it, but living it day to day and helping each other to do the same. This is what I want people to know. Know yourself, know your partner, understand other people. We can't love what we don't understand. If we understand ourselves, we'll understand others, and we'll all be able to live in a much higher and better way. Okay, so thank you very much. We're going to give a little understanding of how we function to be fit for love. We call this getting some accuracy in your intimacy, and this is what we want to understand as to why this is a little different from typical Latin or Arabic dance. You're looking to be able to understand how you function in an intimate setting, and most of the movement, if it's going to work well, is going to happen below the navel center. It's going to happen below what we would refer to as the waistline. So the first movement I'm going to give you is called a hip drop. And what happens is, it's a navel center to the spine, you're moving your pelvic area underneath, you're doing what's called a pelvic tilt, and you drop your hips. Navel center to the spine, and the movement is more fluid. This is what we call in Tantra the pelvic rocking. So we're dropping the hips, dropping. Notice the movement. Drop, drop, drop. And I'll turn to the side here a little bit so you can get an idea a little bit more catacornered. Drop, drop, drop. Now we can do other fun movements which are more of a snake-like movement. This is what's done for Tantra as well, learning how the hips move and pulling underneath, and it's more of a wave movement. Okay, so that's part one. The next movement, and that's a vertical movement. The next movement we have is a horizontal movement. And the horizontal movement, much like a horizon, moves side to side. And what you're doing with that is learning how to pivot for different areas that you want to work with. Everything is different within each woman. So learning to isolate the areas that feel good to her happen by being able to shift your movement. Both men and women have to learn to shift to increase the possibility for more, what we refer to as productive intimacy, where it helps both partners. So we're going side to side, shifting the hips. So you always want to stay tucked underneath, because that way you stay engaged. You want to stay engaged. And if you pull back, then you're disconnecting. So you want to stay pelvic tilt, shift, shift, and stay engaged. The next movement, as we've shown the vertical, then we showed the horizontal, is the lateral movement. And that's a hip shift going 1, 2, 3. And it's a lateral movement where you're using the muscles in your obliques to shift your hips back and forth. And this way, you're allowing each other to also pivot and find areas, especially within the woman, because she needs to learn how to understand herself and find out what works for her and convey that information to her partner. And the partner has to be open to be able to receive and understand why she's saying it and work with her. The happier she is, the happier both of you will be intimately. So there's a wonderful movement called a Maya that people typically say, that's one of the more expressive movements, and it's something that if you practice this movement, it makes all the other movements come together, and it's a collective. It's a wonderful movement that's used in belly dance or Arabic dance. And what it looks like is this. You're shifting and dropping, navel center to your spine. Your hips move first up, they shift over, drop, and back. So we call it a lift, shift, drop, and back. So it looks like this. And you can do it from side to side, back up. You can also practice some more radical horizontal movements that they do from Latin dance and belly dance, which is a turn of the hip and a shift from the center. And I show this in the movement as well. And these are all movements that we learn to get fit for love. It's learning how to work with the core energy, to feel comfortable in your hips, to learn to trust your hip energy, to be okay with learning how your sexual energy works, and be aware that it's an innocent understanding. You're looking to experiment, experience, and explore, not only with your partner, but in life, to have a more productive way of seeing and understanding yourself. So I thank you very much for joining us. It's been a wonderful show. I thank Victoria, and I thank all of you for taking the time out to listen and improve your lives and love lives. I hope that all of you experience the best in becoming fit for love.
Well, Billy, it's been a profound pleasure to again to be able to speak with you and to share with you, and in deep gratitude, I thank you.
Thank you very much.
That you do.
Yeah, the spiritual truth of orgasms. That's the name of my topic at the New Living Expo.
Thank you.
So
we'll see you there.
See you there.
Thank you from the Art of Conscious Living, and we'll see you next time.